We continue on to the fifth movie in the 1928 class, and it's back to the golden age of animation, where a certain mouse embarked on his iconic voyage. I'm talking about none other than Steamboat Willie, the animated short film that introduced the world to the one and only Mickey Mouse. In 1928, the brilliant minds at Walt Disney Studios revolutionized the world of cartoons with Steamboat Willie. Directed by Walt Disney and Iwerks, this groundbreaking animation marked the first synchronized sound and music in a cartoon, forever changing the landscape of entertainment. Picture this. Steamboat Willie, with its catchy tunes and delightful characters, captured the hearts of audiences worldwide. It was a cultural phenomenon, one that laid the foundation for the magical world of Disney as we know today. So the next time you see those famous ears, remember that the estimated $200 billion company started with a simple whimsical journey. This is Steamboat Willie. Steamboat Willie. That's the name of my co-host and I. My name is Robert Gifford, and he's Steamboat Willie. We have a short little podcast episode that we wanted to do here. One of the films that was drafted this year was Walt Disney's Steamboat Willie. We wanted to cover all grounds, all genres, and this being the first animated short feature in the history of, the long history now of anime or animation. Because anime is something completely different in the world of 2024. Will, how you doing, man? Did you get a chance to dive into your inner child, your inner youth, and watch Steamboat Willie through a different lens?
Well, I watched it with my kids, so
what a great treat! Yeah, awesome.
Tried to channel that childhood sense of wonder with having the kids present. So, yeah.
Now, let's get the initial reactions. What was the initial reactions of your children?
Well, I've got the 3-year-old who, couldn't care less, right, about what the story's trying to do. If something's funny, it's funny. If it's not, it's not. But the 6-year-old, Eleanor, she was a little surprised at how mean Mickey was being to the animals.
Interesting.
So, that was kind of her reaction to the movie. My reaction was, just very cool to watch Steamboat Willie. I think everyone's seen at least the 10 seconds of him whistling if you've ever watched a Disney movie, because a lot of them have that at the front now. All of the characters are there, which is kind of cool to see. Like, you've got Pete the cat, who's been terrorizing Mickey for 100 years now, and Mickey running along in her high heels, so nothing's changed.
Yeah. And, normally we would go on this show and we would, give our initial reactions, and then we would break down the film kind of scene by scene and kind of talk about each, importance of each scene. I don't necessarily think we need to do that with this, unless you have a desire to. It was 7 minutes long. What I enjoyed right away was like the kind of the fluid continuity. Like, to me, it didn't feel like an animation from 95 years ago. You know what I mean? To me, it felt like, okay. And I say that not insulting that genre, because it's come a long way. Look what Pixar did for that in the 90s, right? I just feel like it was almost smoother than the silent films. One of the notes I took was, it seems to me like it's a almost more improved silent film. You know what I mean? Because we accept it from the scope of, it's meant to be for children, but like at that time it was meant to just be a different kind of genre, So yeah. I took it as like a silent film almost, because there's no dialogue, right? All the noises are like Sims, like they're all just making grunts and things you would see in the silent era. It just feels like it was done better. I don't know what your thoughts are on that kind of initial take.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. There's something about the animation being overlaid, because they have all the scene and they know exactly what they're doing. They're laying out all their drawings in order and they're shooting those. So there's no like I think they had a plan for what they wanted to do, and they were able to execute because they're not worrying about, I mean, there's no actors credited here. It's just, Walt Disney making whistling along. So, um, I think you're right. There's something because, we have watched a few other movies that at this point aren't as fluid, like where you can see there's clear, like they're trying to keep the continuity in the scene, but they can't keep it because they either run out of film or something. They had to change something on set, and so this was. I think you're right. It was pretty cool, technically speaking.
Yeah, technically speaking, it was great. Do you have any thoughts on like the narrative choices? You said that that we spoke upon how Mickey was being mean. It felt like I've always kind of felt like in some of these cartoons, we kind of overlook the bullying and overlook a lot of and that happens still to this day. It just seems to be a almost like an unwritten undertone of animation, and we just accept it in
Yeah,
society.
yeah. Well, that's the issue with anthropomorphizing like this, right? By like putting human characteristics on a character, like because Mickey is an animal, like the rest of the animals are animals, and it's if you take it, I think if you take it a little too seriously, you can get down to this path of like being like rejecting some of this stuff, and I think that's maybe taking it a little too far, at least this early on. I think they're just trying to make a story, and they're trying to be funny, and I don't think it's much deeper than that.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's ridiculous. I mean,
Hmm.
because it's, and if you were to show humans doing this, then maybe it does lose its ridiculous nature to it. It's animals that wouldn't possibly be acting this way. It's Mickey Mouse is driving a boat. You're never going to get a mouse driving a boat, but if you show a human driving a boat and then all of a sudden, being mean in that fashion, it does have a little bit different feel to it. You know,
Yeah.
we could talk about like Elmer Fudd and things like that down the road. We'll talk about that when we get there. Probably when we do, the very historical and ultimately innovative film of Space Jam in 96. We'll get to that. But no, I'm with you. I think if you look to anything too seriously, you're gonna find what you're looking for because you're looking for it, right?
Right.
Um, in this realm, I just think it's adorable. It's fun. It's light. You get to see your kids kind of laugh. Tom and Jerry is another thing that's more relevant to us. I remember as a kid watching that and being like, these two are really mean to each other. Wile E. Coyote and, they're mean, but like that's the reason you watch because they're the confrontation between the two.
Yeah.
So what an interesting take by your daughter there. Now, did it make her not like Mickey Mouse as much, or did you kind of like explain and let it live, or what?
Yeah, no, we didn't talk about it too much after the short film was over. It was kind of just the comment she made while we were watching it. I doubt she would ask to watch it again. Mostly because it's. I think our children are a little bit more evolved than we were when it comes to like storytelling. Um, Eleanor's pretty serious about a story being good. Like she doesn't, she's always kind of looking for plot mechanics and how the story is going to work and feeling the emotions. So something like this is, I think, fun for. She got to watch it the first time, but we're not taking this forward with us. It's really just kind of cool to see, like, hey, this was the first time Mickey was on screen. So I think that's same for her.
Yeah, no, it was. We probably shared a similar feeling then.
Yeah.
Some interesting notes that I wanted to bring that I thought, just anecdotally that I think is worth
Mhm.
knowing. So Mickey Mouse was created as a replacement from a character called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which if you
Mm.
were to Google that, it's very similar to Mickey Mouse, a little bit different. You see some features a little bit different. It was created, oddly enough, by Disney Studios, but it was owned by Universal Pictures. So
Mm.
Walt Disney, when he started doing his own productions, he decided to draw again the copyright infringements and things of that nature. Who knew what that was in 1928? But again, Mickey Mouse now being owned by Walt Disney World, by Walt Disney Productions, and then we're off to the races because they are basically, you know, especially down there in Florida, who controls who? Does the government control Disney? Does Disney control the government? They're both
Right.
flexing as we speak.
Yeah.
Interesting. Two things I think are really important to talk about. Let's talk about the one that's not as controversial. All right. Well, the first one is Disney World. This just became public domain as of January 1 of this year. Did you know that?
Yes. Yep.
So
Been seeing articles all over the place about Steamboat Willie, the horror movie.
it's coming. Buckle up, buddy. It's coming. It's interesting because I would have never. I would think the movie. I get the movie being public domain, but they're talking about how Mickey Mouse, the character, is public domain, and how Disney is essentially going to be losing some of their characters that are beloved to essentially the free market, which I didn't think that could be the case, but I guess the span on on copyright infringement is 75 years, and then after that, it's fully open to the public to not just take, but to essentially make better, right? To make it more modern for the modern user or the modern viewer, and again, you can get a horror movie that's coming out of it. So it's not just Steamboat Willie, it's Mickey Mouse, it's Goofy. In 2028, Goofy will be free. It's Snow White. It's these types of things that are owned by Disney that they're essentially losing, and that's interesting to see that take place, because I didn't know that was even possible.
Yeah, I mean, Disney is, most of their early stories, you know, are based on other characters that, you know, they incorporate into their, you know, their world. So I mean, Cinderella and Snow White are all based on other stories. Like, and then like one of the movies I watched all the time growing up was that Robin Hood animated movie, and you know that's based on a character that, you know, is a historical figure. So they've been playing with stuff the whole time to kind of, you know, do what they need to do to be successful. So I don't feel too bad about it, especially because they've got a new movie every other year that's making $1 billion, and got new characters they can put their copyright stamps on. They'll be fine.
Yeah. Mickey Mouse almost seems like, with this generation, like the last thing you see when you're there. Like with my generation, I think with us, it was like, oh, Mickey Mouse. I mean, it was still the big thing. Now it's, you know, like Taryn Campbell used to say, the least used app on your phone is phone. And that always made me laugh, because that's how it feels with Mickey Mouse, is that he's the face of the place, but he's like the last thing anybody wants to see anymore. He's worth $15 billion, just Mickey Mouse, the brand Mickey Mouse, which is incredible.
Yeah.
All right, let's dive into now a little bit more controversial. Prior to watching this, did you have any prior knowledge that this was some semblance of a controversial, racist short film?
No, not like in any sort of serious depth. I think there's a lot of racial undertones with Walt Disney, though, that I don't know a ton about. So I guess I'm not surprised to hear that there might be something specific about this character that has some, you know, racial undertones.
Well, that's essentially, you're right. That's what it is. So like I watched it because I had always kind of heard that Steamboat Willie, and that's why I was shocked when you said it was on Disney, because somewhere along the lines, I had heard that Steamboat Willie was taken off of Disney Plus, kind of during that time 3-4 years ago, or maybe it's prior to COVID, where they released all of their stuff onto the Disney Plus, and people were like, "Oh, Dumbo is racist," and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, all these issues, right? They had all these issues, and then there was the conversation about whether or not they should be left on there, and that's kind of the conversation that you and I have had a few times.
Sure.
You're right. The undertones are definitely there. This is believed to have direct influences from minstrel shows during that time. But with that being said, there's nothing like overtly in your face racist from this cartoon.
Sure.
Because I was watching it, I'm thinking, okay, when I got done, I was like, okay, I had to Google, I had to do the research because, I didn't want to come on here and tell you how great it was and how much I loved it, and then be like, wait a minute, half the world thinks it's a piece of trash because of this, and that just go over my head.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I did my research. So that's the biggest reason why, is that it's got these undertones, just like you said. Walt Disney is the one, obviously, who created it. He's got the most racial undertones. And interesting enough, Will, this movie was inspired by Walt Disney sitting front row at, or not front row, but sitting at the Jazz Singer with Al Jolson, and thinking that there was a place before movies for these animated short films. So interesting enough, right? That the last time we've mentioned minstrel shows on this particular show was back in 1927 with Al Jolson's the Jazz Singer. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is interesting, and it's interesting. As soon as you said that, I just realized that like Mickey's kind of reverse blackface, right? Because
yeah,
he's got white face and the rest of him is black. So that's
yeah,
just kind of something that I hadn't considered before.
yeah. I'm with you. I think what I would like to do for this episode, because this was part one of a two-part. We've got another show that we did this week, or another movie that we did. I think because it was only 7 minutes in nature, and we're using this as a launching point for animation, we don't need to dive too much into Walt Disney yet, the man, right? I think we can dive more into him and his kind of upbringing and some of his influences and why he became the person he became, because there's probably, you can argue that there's nothing more American than Walt Disney World, right? You could argue that. There's definitely a place, because he's created something that kind of stood the test of time, and feels so enrooted into our American society. And Mickey Mouse, like you said, Disney World stole so many ideas, or played fast and loose with copyright, and you know,
Mm,
at that time, that it's nice to see that they, instead of battling this, they've completely just given it up and just are going to let Mickey Mouse become a free agent and see where he goes. So,
yeah.
any final thoughts on the film, on just 1928 animation, just where we're at? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it was it was curious to me that here I was kind of looking for the reel being reused, right? Because I thought for sure there was going to be a lot of like reused scenes just because of the nature of trying to do a animated movie at the time, but it was actually there was a lot here. There was a few here and there, especially at the beginning when he's actually piloting the boat like you got in the background here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there was a lot going on here. No, I was impressed. Obviously, this is a interesting. It's going to be interesting to track animation over the years because I don't think we're going to see a lot of innovation here because it's until you get to the 90s with Toy Story, you're looking at hand drawn stuff. So the innovation is going to be in the color. It's going to be in maybe having better technology to speed up your frames. But other than that, I mean, we're going to be looking at a lot of animation that tracks right back to this. So
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think it's important to maybe touch on the kind of the technical aspects of, just like you said, you were looking for repeat reels, and there was very few of them, And what I find interesting about that is, like, is I personally, just the craft of, and the patience that you would have to have for this type of, you know, fluid storytelling without it like missing, or, it reminds me of those flip books a little bit. You know what I mean? Where
mhm.
you had to draw it. That's what this is, except it's not just done in 30 seconds. It's done over 7 minutes. So how many
Right.
pages did you need in order to get this flip book to become possible? So yeah, the craft part of it, dude. And, and I think because it was so tedious and so strenuous and all those things that come with it, I don't think there was a lot of competition for Walt Disney once he kind of got his hands going right away. Maybe we'll be surprised to learn that there was, but I think that's why there's not a lot of innovation, because there's not a lot of people, different people doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point because it's not really until you get into into the like 80s when you start seeing stuff that's not produced. You start seeing more that's not produced by Walt Disney. I'm thinking like Land Before Time is one of the movies that wasn't Disney. It might actually be Disney now because they ended up buying everything up.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Land Before Time, I Littlefoot. I love that movie.
I've been trying to get kids to watch that one, but Eleanor knows it's sad, so she won't.
Oh, dude, that is the saddest cartoon movie animation I've ever watched in my life. Period. Hands down. Nothing, Bambi, nothing came close to that movie. So,
Agreed.
talk about childhood trauma. Just don't let her watch it.
Oh man.
All right, so that was 1928 Steamboat Willie, Walt Disney World. It had a budget of, according to this, I could be wrong, but this is what it says on Disney's personal notes, had a budget of okay, I was reading it wrong. Okay, $4,986.69. I was going to say, I don't see how this would have been $4 million. But
yeah,
no, it was. Okay, I'm wrong. It was $4 million. And that's because they had to print it for the theaters. Okay.
Oh.
That makes a little more sense to me. Sorry. It's important to get it right here on Cinema 100. All right, Willie, we will see you on down the road when we do In Old Arizona.
All right, sounds good.